It is 6:15, 6:16, something along those lines. We will reconvene our regular meeting. Dr. Head, do we have any introductions to make or special guests? Any recognition?
Yes, we do. If Jennifer, you want to introduce your staff first?
Hi, good evening. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm excited. I have 3 people to introduce tonight.
Oh, great.
So first is Lorena Pacini. Stand up.
What was the last name?
Pacini.
Pacini, okay.
She's the Associate Vice Chancellor for Financial Reporting and Operations. So she is functionally Lone Star College's controller. She started her career in Argentina as a certified public accountant and external auditor at Grant Thornton. After getting her MBA, she moved here to the United States to continue her career in a multinational oil and gas company. But she does also have a background in education and training. She was a professor of finance and accounting at the University of Buenos Aires. And she's done training and development of employees across countries and cultures as a finance trainer and as a training manager. And she enjoys spending time with her family, reading and painting. So please help me welcome Lorena.
Welcome. You know, we should give her just a minute or so to say a few words to the body. And we are putting you on the spot, but not intentionally.
Let me say I'm really very excited to be part of the Lone Star College. Though my career has been in the corporate world, I've always been in connection with education, and it's one of my passions. So to combine my work in finance with education is really a great achievement for me and gives me a lot of happiness. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you and all the team.
Well, thank you, and welcome to the best junior college, community college in the world.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Nayeli Sosido. She is Associate Vice Chancellor for Supply Management. She has experience in supply chain management for 17 years over 4 industries: oil and gas, aerospace, international outsourcing, and telecommunications. She comes to us most recently from Technip FMC. She also has held many nonprofit positions, including a member at large at the Sourcing and Procurement Organization Executive Council from the University of Houston. And she has definitely no shortage of degrees: a bachelor's degree in supply chain management, a minor in Spanish literature, International Business Certificate from Arizona State University, as well as an MBA from the University of Phoenix, and an Effective Leadership Communication Certificate from the Thunderbird School of Global Management.
Wow.
So please help me introduce Nayeli. Welcome, Nayeli.
You have equal time also. And plus, are you the lady that I met today at the Chamber of Commerce meeting?
Yes, we met
Okay,
this
yeah,
morning.
good.
I'm very blessed and happy to be here. I'm happy to say that I've been in the Woodlands for 6.5 years, and I'm looking forward to making a difference for North Harris and for the community I live to shine and educate the future of this place.
Thank you for those wonderful words.
Thank you.
Okay, and finally, but not least, Denise Noy. Sorry, Noy. Denise Noy. She is the Executive Director for Construction in the Facilities and Construction Department. So there, she has 23 years of experience in construction and the real estate industry in both private and public sectors. Her most recent position has been the Director of Facilities Planning at Sam Houston State University. And she has a bachelor's degree in construction science from Texas A&M University. And she enjoys traveling, volunteering for her children's school and athletics events, and always leaving time to enjoy Mother Nature. So please help me welcome Denise.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to be part of the solution and working collaboratively working collaboratively with all of the campuses, the internal departments, and being a part of the Lone Star College. Thank you.
We're glad to have you. Thank you for. Thank you, Jennifer.
Helen?
Chair Smith, trustees, chancellor. Tomorrow is the graduation of the academy cohort, and you've seen our academy folks before you before. This is our flagship leadership development program, and it brings together about 30 faculty, staff, and administrators system-wide to develop their leadership potential. It's a year-long program, and the capstone of the program is their POD project, Professional Organization Development Project. And this project should tie into Lone Star's goals, be something that ties into our strategic plan and our cultural beliefs. And we had 6 POD projects this year, and one of them stood out above the others. And it was titled A Comprehensive Plan for Addressing the Needs of At-Risk Students. You can see some of the things that the POD group did in there, and I think you'll agree that it addresses all of those concerns. That's a system-wide issue. It follows, dovetails really well with what we're doing for college number 7 and also with our Student Success Institute. And they have spent some time working with Quentin Wright and presenting their findings to him, and he can incorporate that as he goes forward. I'd like to introduce the winning POD members this year. It's Fiona, if you all could stand. Excuse me, Fiona, I'll call your names. Fiona Barnett, Raymond Kraft, Darlene Luce. Fiona's from System Office. Foundation. Raymond is now at LSE Tomball, having worked at the System Office and North Harris. Darlene Luce is at North Harris. Dr. Roberta Short is at Sci-Fair, and Sarah Ray is at UP. It's a great system-wide group, and I have had the pleasure of working pretty closely with Fiona, Raymond, and Darlene, so I am not at all surprised that they put together such a terrific project. So join me in thanking them. And they will graduate tomorrow. Their POD projects are at 9 in the community building, and graduation starts at 1:30 if anybody wants to be there. And I have the pleasure of introducing our incoming Academy Fellows tonight. If you all would stand as I call your name, remain standing, and then come forward to have the picture taken in front of the dais with the trustees standing. We did that last month. It was good.
Oh, yeah.
So from LSC Sci-Fair, we have Norwan Austin, Shad Clark, Jennifer Krause, Jeffrey Hurt, Linda Rieger, Jay Roberts, and Melanie Steele. From Kingwood, Darlene Beeman and Sagan McClure. From Montgomery, Lauren Cash, Natalie Foreman, and Gail Smith. North Harris, Mark Barnes, Adrette Creeks, Brandy Ford, Shane Puryear, Jennifer Travis, Tom Ball, Monty Darland, and Patrick Gilbert. From LSCUP, Stephanie De Leon, Malia Johnson, Clavelia Martin, Matt Plank, Dina Stutz. System Office, the Woodlands, Gabby Andrade, and from System Office UP, Kristen Dufauchard, Joshua Hill, Priscilla Martin, Elisa McClendon, Kathy Nistetter, and Elizabeth Thompson. And so if the 2018 Academy Fellows could come forward facing the room, we'll take your picture. Also wanted to have a big shout out to Katie Halbert. She leads these programs and does a terrific job.
I'll have to stand with it. That's it. Correct. They will lose.
senator, which usually don't immediately disqualify him as an author from my perspective, so I'm biased. But I mean, he has an incredible background, which he covers. That's not the point of our show. He has to talk about his background, so he can make us go. You'll have a better handle than I will. I just have anecdotal experience at this point.
Okay.
Some people that never grow up. And there's more in them and more.
Okay. Anything else, Dr. Head, under introductions, special guests, or recognitions? Okay. Move right along. There's no workshop tonight. At this point in time, the agenda calls for approval of the minutes of the November 2nd, 2017 workshop and regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and second that we adopt the minutes of the November 2nd meeting. Are there any questions, comments? If not, all those in favor vote by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same signs? Any abstentions? None. Motion adopted. Mr. Chancellor, any special reports or announcements?
No.
Okay. At this point, Dr. Riley, I think you are the next person up. And Dr. Riley is reporting out for the presidents.
Good evening, Chair Smith, trustees, Chancellor Head, and guests. Partnerships constitute one of the most important ways that Lone Star College extends opportunity, influence, and access to higher education throughout our community. It is through partnerships that many of the most important entities in our service area come to share a common educational, social, and economic goals with us. They recognize the critical role that Lone Star plays in the well-being of our communities. Tonight, I'd like to highlight a few of our best partnerships. We all recognize that some of our greatest opportunities for expansion, new programming, and innovation will occur through partnerships. So one of the most important partnerships that we have is with our service area ISDs. And we have so many different kinds of partnerships with our ISDs, but three important categories are our college readiness programs, and one example of that is the CARE Academy at Sci-Fair, in which students are allowed in high school to become college ready for English and math and not have to retake a placement exam before they come into the Lone Star College system. And they do that through curriculum in the high school that mimics our developmental education. Of course, dual credit is an extremely important part of our ISD partnerships. Many enrollments come to us through dual credit. Early college high schools are another, and accelerated dual credit are other very exciting ways in which we allow students to begin their college careers while still in high school. In an early college high school, students begin obtaining college credit as early as the 9th grade. So listed here are our early college high schools as it stands right now. Victory is one of the oldest. Spring Early College Academy is one of the newest. And just a few really interesting figures. Splendora Early College High School has been with Kingwood 9 years. So far, we've awarded 224 associate's degrees to students upon graduation from high school. Quest, 8 years, 235 associate's degrees, and Infinity, 47, with only 5 years of experience. So those are really amazing opportunities for students in our service area. Of course, students do that tuition free. We have a lot of special programs with our ISDs as well. So a couple of examples. In New Caney, there's a nurse aid program. Students are able to obtain a marketable skill by the time they graduate from college. The Timberwolf experience lets 5th graders know what it's like to go to college and encourages a college-going mentality early in elementary school. The Mosaic program at Kingwood is designed with Humble ISD for students who are 18 years of or older, 18 years of age or older, and have had special education. And they come to the campus and do programming at the campus. We have some teacher education programs that are designed to help ISDs grow their own teachers as well. Those happen throughout the system. Two that we highlighted were Montgomery and Kingwood, where students are able to start their college credit towards a teacher credential as early as their junior year. Very important partnerships with Harris County with our libraries. We have the library at Cy-Fair and the library at Tomball, which are joint ventures between the college and Harris County. So some of the advantages to having these include an extended collection. The collections come together and so therefore are larger than either would have alone. Both have an internet cafe, which is a great place for members of the public to spend time and to avail themselves of the resources at the libraries. Students get access to more extended programming by virtue of this partnership. And of course, the public visits our campuses because of these libraries here. For example, the children's collections at both of these locations bring lots of families to the campuses. I'm so proud to highlight some of the partnerships that we have with community organizations. Kingwood has a partnership with Mission Northeast that helps students complete a GED degree, get counseling and advising and family support to get them ready for college, and also allows them to enroll in a nurse aid program. We've had a partnership with Humble Area Assistance Ministries for a very long time as well. Through that partnership, students or clients at HAM are directed to Lone Star for continuing education and for enrollment in college, GED, and other kinds of services as well. Since 2015, 4,236 households have been impacted by HAM and Lone Star in their partnership, 22,000 individuals, 844 of whom were LSC affiliated. That's quite an impact in the community. Many of the campuses now have food banks. And at Montgomery, there's a food bank in partnership with the Montgomery County Food Bank. There is also a food bank at Tomball. I believe that's correct. Did I get it right? And Cy-Fair, I used the Cy-Fair photograph here because I thought they had such an amazing name for their food bank. Food for Thought is the one at Cy-Fair. And UP is in the process of creating a system, a voucher system for food, access to food for students. So we talk a lot about the cost of college, and sometimes we don't consider some of the just daily living challenges that our students, in fact, students and staff have, and so our food banks are one way that we help address some of those needs. Montgomery has a partnership with Angel Reach, which is designed to help students who are aging out of foster care access higher education more easily. We provide tutoring, advising, and career services for them. And one of our latest partnerships is the E3 partnership. That's a partnership with the Montgomery County Homeless Coalition to create a new culinary program in the Conroe area. The Society for Innovation Management is a group of senior level IT professionals who are partnered with UP. They've done some great things for our students, including raising quite a lot of money for scholarships and for programming. A $12,000 donation from this group also helped them build their Internet of Things at UP. Clearly, health occupations are a source of great pride for us and are also very much driven by our partnerships, whether from our partnerships with hospitals and clinical facilities in order to provide clinical sites for our students, but also the learning opportunities for students and the exchange of information, expertise, and donations of equipment are very important through many of these partners. Tomball Regional Health Foundation, for example, has donated state-of-the-art equipment, has and granted access to state-of-the-art equipment, and also supports a faculty position at Tomball in nursing. I mentioned Kingwood Medical Center there associated with Montgomery College, which is a little surprising, but it has to do with our RadTech program. And recently, Kingwood Medical donated an entire radiologic suite to us for our new expanded facility for RadTech, and it's allowing us to greatly increase our class size. Memorial Hermann the Woodlands has supported a faculty position, and there are so many things that we do with our partners in the community that help us enrich our health occupations programs. We have a number of corporate and public partnerships as well. One example is the Woodlands Township with the Woodlands Fire Department. This gives our students access to training facilities that they have, which are much more sophisticated than what we would likely build on our own on a campus especially. So students get access to burn buildings, and they get to network with working firefighters, which helps them obtain jobs later on. The firefighters get to see the cadets and kind of pre-screen the ones they'd like to invite to for employment. It's a great partnership. North Harris has a great partnership with Stewart and Stevenson, and in fact that partnership is a huge factor in their ability to start the industrial diesel department. So the next few slides kind of categorize benefits to students in some of these corporate partnerships, and you'll see things like donations, you'll see internships for students, you'll see the hiring of our students, and of course product support, because students are training on the very products that these industries will use. So here's another one, Goodman Daikin has primarily to do with the HVAC labs and the HVAC programming at North Harris. A great partner, also gave us a lot of equipment as we were getting that program going. UP has a partnership with its neighbor, with its next door neighbor, Noble Energy, that helped them build the geology rock wall in the new building. That's a $250,000 project that wouldn't have been possible without the Noble Energy contribution and support. Students will, as you can kind of see in this illustration, this architect's rendering, students will be able to see the layers of geologic time in the building. It's going to be really beautiful. The Noble Energy also supports childcare through the YMCA at UP. Through a $20,000 grant, which is extremely important for many of our students who have to take care of families while they're trying to finish school. Tomball's partnership with Pearson has greatly supported their GRIT program. It's given them access to the GRIT gauge and students access to having the ability to analyze the results of their GRIT gauge. And gives them an ongoing relationship with one of the primary authors in this field, Dr. Paul Stoltz. That partnership has grown over the last couple of years and is becoming a model for the entire country. Of course, we can't mention partnerships without talking about the arts. Throughout the system, there are many arts partnerships in performing and visual arts that are extremely beneficial to our students. One of the things that these partnerships do is allow students the opportunity to perform with world-class performers while they're still students. Instead of sitting in the audience and watching these folks, they get to play alongside them. So few partnerships are illustrated here. The Shining Stars Guild is a group that is supporting the performing arts programming at University Park. Lake Houston Musical Arts Society supports the Kingwood Chorale, Kingwood Big Band, and there's also a partnership with the Kingwood Pops Orchestra at Kingwood. And the Woodland Symphony Orchestra is a partnership with Montgomery College, in which we are now housing the Montgomery Youth Symphony as well. So I thought I would end this presentation with just a little bit of entertainment from the Kingwood Big Band. That's Eric Marathon, famous jazz saxophonist. So they really are good.
Yeah,
World class. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Are there any questions?
There was one question, I may be off base, but a while back, someone mentioned that there was a partnership started with Klein ISD in terms of pre-nursing or something. Now, has that started already?
This is at Tomball.
Okay.
Do you want to address that, Leanne?
Sure. Since UP doesn't have a nursing program, we were able to partner with Klein ISD, admitting students into a pathway where they, upon completion of their high school diploma, will be able to have an associate's degree and then have their one-year nursing certificate within a year, be an associate's degree nurse, and then once we get the BSN started, be able to be a BSN within 2 years or so after high school graduation. It's the first in the state, and it's board approved by the Board of Nursing, and other schools around the state are starting to look to that as a model for the state. And that started with Klein.
Yeah, and I brought that up only because I think that's a great program that we started, and I just think we're going to be a model for the entire state and nation.
I
on
think
it.
we're
And-
all waiting for them to work out all
All the
the
kinks.
first year kinks, and then we're gonna see what we can do.
Second comment too is, I think I read somewhere whereby students that are in dual credit classes in high school complete college at a much higher rate than those that do not get dual credit in high school. And if that's accurate, I hope that we are pushing, or someone's pushing that concept with the young students that are
And with
shying
their
away
parents.
from dual credit, huh?
And with their parents,
Yes, thank you.
yes,
So,
yes. That is true. I don't know the exact figures, but they're more likely to proceed to college after high school and to graduate from college.
Lone Star has the second largest enrollment of dual credit students in the state. South Texas is a little ahead of us. It's not our goal to reach them exactly, but we are trying to increase enrollments in dual credit.
oh yeah, I like that, and thank you all for all of the work that you do to sell this program to our students, and all of our programs to the students.
Rebecca, go ahead.
This presentation, does it include all the partnerships?
Oh, no, there are
Okay,
many
that's
more.
why I was thinking
It's like
FNC
all of our
and- yeah, okay.
presentations, you have this much information and this much time. We have so many more partnerships in this, but I thought we'd highlight some in each of those categories.
Rebecca,
Yes. Yes, sir.
do major universities have this variety of partnerships?
I'm not sure. I think many of the major universities do have a number of partnerships. Many of them are research-driven in terms of the prioritization of partnerships at a research university. So we have a little bit different focus, but I think we are unique in the sense that many of our partnerships are very community-based.
I don't think they have the breadth and the scope of what we, having worked at a couple of universities. If you take a look at our 6 colleges and look at all of the community organizations, and as she pointed out, we could spend a couple of hours probably going
Yes,
through
we
our
could.
partnerships at all levels. So Lone Star probably, if there's a college that has more, I'm not aware of it. I'm talking about in every single thing that we do. There's some kind of partnerships, even with elementary schools and universities, and you name it, we have it.
Can you give me a good reason then as to why anyone would want to go to the University of Texas?
As a graduate of Texas
I mean,
Tech, no, I cannot.
they don't offer.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Brown.
It's called internship.
Oh, okay.
My daughter did, but she received a really nice scholarship to go there, by the way.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Internships, that's what they call
Do we have a report from the Vice Chancellor?
Yes. Mario, can you come up and talk about the mandatory training, where we are with that?
Thank
Hello.
Hi.
So for the last 2 years, we've had mandatory training, and what those modules include is essentially Title IX training in particular, we focus a great deal on. And based on what's going on in the national news, it seems like our timing could not be more impeccable. So Title IX training, then we have general EEO, retaliation, Title VII training. And so it is mandatory. For contract employees, it is a term of your contract. It appears in your contract. If you do not do the mandatory training, then that is grounds to terminate your contract. If you're an at-will employee and you don't do the training, that is grounds for immediate termination upon the due date. And so this year, the window is from October 1st to December 1st, up to 11:59 p.m. on December 1st was the deadline. And so we had about 6,800 employees that were subject to this training. Of those 6,800, as of December 1, actually December 2nd, at midnight, we had 111 people that appeared on that list. Of those 111, 99 were part-time employees, 12 were full-time employees. And then so that's the list of the people who just, for one reason or another, didn't do it. And so we also have a very sort of labor-intensive process of cross-checking everyone who didn't do the training against workers' comp leave, FMLA leave, ADA leave, sabbaticals, and so those people come off, right? So we take those people off. And then, of course, we have sort of different little one-offs. We have people, for example, that are teaching in China. And so if you're teaching in China, we don't expect you to do the mandatory training while you're in China. You are subject to do it when you come back. We also have situations where we're very sensitive to our sexual assault victims. And so sexual assault victims don't have to do it either. And so we take those people off of the list. And so once we take everyone off of the list, because they have one reason or another why they were on the list, we're left with 87 part-time employees and one full-time employee for the entire system. And so to put that in perspective, 88 people of almost 6,900 people that had to do the training didn't do it for one reason or another. Of those 87, about 30 of them, probably a little bit less, actually about 25 of them are part-time staff. And then about 50 or 60 of them, give or take one or two, are adjuncts. And so the way we manage adjuncts is, if you're an adjunct that is not teaching this semester, but you're appearing on our employee list, we go ahead and take you off of the list, and then you can't teach another class until you do the training. If you are an adjunct who, for one reason or another, didn't do the training and you were teaching a class for us, then you get let go. And when you get let go, we put a do not rehire on your account, and you're not allowed to basically come back until the chancellor personally allows you to come back. For full-time employees, those employees, as soon as we sort of do a second, third, quadruple check to make sure that that person didn't do it, that person is going to lose their job as well. The 20 or so part-time staff members that didn't do it are also going to lose their jobs. And so total, there's going to be about 88 people that lose their jobs because they didn't do the training. And so I can tell you that that sounds pretty harsh, but when you sit across from the EEOC and they say, how serious do you take the training at Lone Star College? And you respond, 6,800 people have to do it. We meticulously track it, and 88 people lost their jobs because they didn't do it. It's sort of a conversation ender, and the EEOC says, thank you, we have everything that we need. And so that is the mandatory training update. Any questions from anybody about that?
So let me make sure the board knows, we sent out probably 25 notices. The major complaint that we had was not about the training. The training lasted about 3 hours. there were issues that actually happened here. You all have access to that training, I believe, right?
Yes, sir,
If
they
you want
do.
to see it.
Yes.
The complaints we had were, why are you sending out so many emails, not the actual training? And it's because we had so many people who weren't taking the training. That's not what we want to do, but if you work here, then you have to take the training. I mean, that's where we are with it. So, and I don't think 3 hours of training a year for employees over issues that we deal with on a fairly regular issue here is asking too much. So if you don't want to do the training, then don't work here. So
I just want to make sure I heard the numbers right.
Yes, ma'am.
You said 87 part-timers.
Yes, ma'am.
Were any of those not teaching this semester?
So I've gotten reports that, so the 87 includes staff and faculty.
Okay, so we were down to like 50 or 60 adjuncts, right?
Right, and
Okay.
so as far as we know in OGAC, the Office of Government Audit and Compliance, where the folks who manage this, everyone who's on that list was teaching this semester.
Okay.
Now I do know, just as sort of we're circulating those lists, that there are some people that either resigned after we took the census data essentially to send out those emails. And so we are looking to see if you weren't teaching, then you just have to do the training before you come and teach. And last year I can tell you that I'm the one that you essentially have to call. And last year we maybe had 5 people that came back last year it was in the spring if you remember. And so we had people show up for the summer or even in the fall and say, hey, I didn't teach a class last semester, what do I need to do? We unlock the training, you do the training, and you're back on deck if you weren't teaching. But if you were teaching and you didn't do it, then, I mean, you don't work here anymore.
we want to reiterate, though, that we had 6,800 people that actually completed the training, right?
Yes,
Or
sir.
thereabouts. So the employees, 99, whatever the percentage is, % of our employees completed the training when they were supposed to.
Second question. How frequently does a list go to the supervisors, whether that's department chairs or deans, of people in their line of supervision that are teaching that haven't taken it? How often do they get those lists and how accurate?
So literally every year that we've done this, so we kind of had a soft sort of require that first year, and then last year was the first sort of mandatory, and then every year we're getting better at doing it.
Sure.
So last year we had lists. This year we actually had a dashboard that every supervisor could log in, and it was updated every 2 days, and you could export an Excel spreadsheet, and literally, I mean, it got updated. Link's group did a really great job of sort of updating it constantly. As we got towards the end, it was being updated every 24 hours. And so any supervisor could have gone in there, export a list of an Excel spreadsheet having all their folks. And we actually opened it up so much that you could check in other departments. It was completely transparent who had not done the training.
It's worth noting, though, Trustee Good, that we look to the presidents and the vice chancellors to monitor their areas. We're so large, we can see it from here, but I know when we sent out notes, we sent out a number of them from his offices, or various offices, from my offices. Then the college presidents were following up with notes also to I think they're more inclined to pay attention to an email from a president sometimes than the chancellor. So we were looking at, and the vice chancellor's looking to them to deal with their own employees.
Next year, our goal is to have that dashboard be live. So as people do the training, they get taken off the dashboard so that Link's group doesn't have to manually update it like they were helping us this year. So next year, the goal is that as soon as you finish that training, it's live. So you can literally up to the minute tell where someone is in the training.
But the bottom line, I heard you say that folks were notified about 25 times.
Probably at least. So last year I had to do the math once we started terminating people. So last year we ended notifying people almost 40 times. And those are the ones that I could keep track of. This year it felt like we did 2 or 3. I mean, I'm telling you that this year most of the complaints were, please stop emailing me about doing the training. I can't believe that you can't trust me to take care of this. Those kind of things were the stuff people were complaining about, essentially getting too much notice. All right, is that all? All right, thank you.
Pretty thorough, thank you. Okay. Ms. Paula?
Chairman Smith and
Chancellor Head and our trustees. I'm going to be talking about the Puente Project. And for me, Puente is about providing opportunities. It's a matter of social justice that the goal of this project is to transfer students to earn bachelor's degrees and beyond and return to the community to mentor other Puente students. We have to bridge this gap to live in an equitable community where the number of educated individuals mirrors the demographics of the community. So Puente means bridge, and bridges for students, to faculty, to advisors, to mentors, and to four-year institutions, and bridges that return them to their communities to lead and serve. Puente is a holistic approach, providing instruction, advising, and mentoring for traditionally underrepresented students to successfully complete, transfer, and return to their communities as leaders. We recently had an administrator summit to introduce the Puente Texas model to newcomers, and we had over 30 participants from the greater Houston area, including Lone Star Colleges and our own board member, Miriam Saldivar, and as well as our college president, Shah Ardalan. There were participants from Lee College, HCC, and representatives from AMA, the Association for the Advancement of Mexican Americans. And the night before the summit, Victory Center's English professor Chris Hinojosa arranged a meeting with Puente executive directors, AMA, and the mayor's office because they're interested in taking a pre-Puente program into the HISD schools. So there's much to say about Puente, but I would really rather let you experience some of the magic that happens in a Puente English classroom. So I've got some people participating here. My cohort in crime here is Shannon Hausinger. She directs our SLRC, and she arranges a lot of the extra activities for Puente students that go on our campus.
This is written by Sartak.
You have to stand up and talk right there.
I am from a place unknown, from crowded streets full of small shops. I am from houses made up of concrete, painted in vibrant colors and guarded by four walls. I am from rotary phones to smart TVs, and from grandma's old clothespins. I am from sweet dishes and spicy curries, from green chili peppers and hot mashed potatoes, from get-togethers and family dinners. I am from pass it on and get this one, from laughter and old shared tales. I am from ice cream cups and cones, from morning prayers and bedtime stories, from mother's lessons and grandma's tales, and scattered toys underneath my bed. I am from the dirt underneath my feet, and from summer skies when stars are strung across the velvety night. I am from large fields with the banyan tree, whose long gone limbs I remember as if they were my own. I am from bicycle rides and Sunday morning games, from all my failures and accomplishments, from a dress box spilling old pictures full of lost faces that drift beneath my dreams, from those colors of joy and the lights of fireworks from that festival of joy. I am from the nation full of traditions and a place where human emotions are praised.
This is from Hector. Hector. In my family, there are 3 men that share the same name I do. My grandfather, my uncle, and my cousin. Therefore, my name will always be linked to these 3 men and what they represent. I want people to think of these hardworking men when they hear my name. But I also want to prove that I am strong and respected as they are. I want people to hear that name and only hear good things and good stories.
I am from high ponytails done by my mother's strong but gentle hands, yanking and clipping down my stubborn baby hairs. I am from having a best friend named Tiger who was from China, eating fortune cookies on Fridays at recess if he remembered to bring them, which was a ritual. I am from sitting on the kitchen stool and watching Mom cook, mesmerized by the smells of homemade tortillas. I am from leaping into my dad's arms when he'd walk into the kitchen and running from my sister's hands trying to take back the shirt I took from her closet. I am from a father who would give his life for me, from a mother who means the world to me, and from a sister who inspires me. Home is wherever they are. They are a part of me.
Letters. Mayo Sharvan. My name means so much because my father, who was killed in May of this year, named me. My name has 13 letters and was copied from a young lady registering her bike with her mom at the fire station. My dad was a paramedic working there, and he happened to see her name, 13 letters long, and she wrote it out at the age of 5. He was astounded. He copied it letter for letter and named me, his first child, the beautiful name. He wanted to see at what age I could spell it. Age 5. I had it down. There are 2 people in the whole world with this name, me and her.
The beautiful game. I am from beautiful beaches to the west, from breathtaking rainforests to the east. I am from soccer fanatics who think the beautiful game is a religion, from being born with a ball at your feet as a rule, and picking a team for life too. I am from people with small pockets, but with big hearts and souls, from where you may not have much, but you give it your all. I am from the morning smell of freshly baked bread, from corner stores and street vendors. I am from, you think this house is a hotel? And what are you going to do when I'm gone? I am from the yellow of our riches, from the blue of our oceans and sky, from the red of the blood spilled for us by our heroes. I am from Ecuador.
Given to me by my mother, the nickname Dre is more than just a name. Short and simple, like me, it identifies who I am. It flows effortlessly off the tongue, much like the words I speak. The name is easy to remember, much like my personality, so you'll never forget who I am. And every time you hear the name Dre, you'll know I am a man.
Thank you. Those were written by University Park students and students at Victory Center. There haven't been a lot of words on the slides, but these words are important because Puente teaches us to meet students where they are and build on students' social and cultural capital. We provide full wraparound services which are critical to the college experience and intentionally provide opportunities for students to make connections to the college, to people at the college, community, mentors, and the resources available to them. So this is our students, their first semester go on a university field trip. We want them to focus on transfer and completion of bachelor's degrees from the beginning. This is the group we took to Sam Houston State University this year. We also do once a semester have a fall family gathering where families are invited to the campus. And so we have students that bring whoever they consider family. That might be their parents, it could be siblings, extended family, to see what a great place the college is and to meet with the faculty and advisors that these students are working with. A key part of Puente is professional development. The first stage of a year's worth of training begins with a 5-day in-residence immersion training. The cycle is completed with 2 additional 2-day trainings. But everyone that's trained in the Puente model take their skills beyond the cohorts. So this way of teaching is infused really in all of their classes. So some of the faculty comments from this. Attending the Puente training has helped me see the value in using culturally relevant text. The students are more engaged and motivated in class when they're able to make connections with the literature. That's from Professor Elizabeth Pena. Puente has made me more conscious, more deliberate instructor in terms of building community. In a single activity, students can learn, become more confident, and build relationships. That's the power of Puente. And that's from Professor Brian Reeves, who's also our department chair at UP for Developmental English. The principles on which the Puente program is founded are, to put it simply, the principles of good teaching. These ideas, inclusion, cultural appreciation, familial involvement, strong mentorship, and cohort-based student support, contribute to what supports teaching the whole student, and that's from Professor Christopher Hinojosa at Victory Center. Finally, a proven cohort and learning community system that combines pedagogy, curriculum, mentoring, coaching, and best practices for classroom engagement and accelerated learning, all under one name, Puente. That's from Professor Minette Dorsey. After attending the two-day regional workshop this fall, I walked away with a new outlook on teaching and serving my students. I immediately revamped my research essay project to include more reflective writing in order to introduce controversial topics such as immigration, transgender rights, and gun control. I incorporated Puente's philosophy of allowing students to make a cultural connection with the subject matter by creating gallery rocks, which included letters, photographs, and even videos representing both sides of an issue. The quality of writing and actual excitement that I received from my trio 0119 and Hispanic students has been overwhelming. This one small tweak to my instruction has positively changed the canter of my classroom, and that's from our adjunct professor, Ginger Frey. She teaches at Tomball and Greenspoint Center. These are pictures of we started with a very small cohort last year, and we have 84 students in our cohorts this year. But again, the students beyond the cohorts benefit because as teachers are trained in this methodology, then that's passed along to their other classes as well. Any questions?
I have a comment. Sure. And this is probably going to sound redundant, but I am always interested in student success and et cetera. And this sounds like a great program and et cetera. I'm happy to see it implemented. I hope from time to time, we'll be able to see data on how well these students, I hate to use the word compare, but compete.
Yes.
As a result of this training.
Yeah, we.
So that,
I'm sorry.
No,
go ahead.
No, wait a minute. You go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that we had at the Administrator Summit that we had the executive directors from California presented a lot of data to us about the program's about 36 years old there. We're just starting this. Lee College has some data because they've been doing this longer than we have. This is only our second year, so I don't have data to provide you yet. So, but as soon as I do, we absolutely will provide that.
That's what I was asking.
Yes.
As we mature and et cetera, please report out on how well we are doing, like we do on other stuff.
Right.
Helen, we probably ought to put this on a list because we can get success rates for students who belong to groups, and we can work with the colleges. And Link, I'm really looking at Helen, but I'm talking to you through data analytics. So we can take these groups, and just for the board's sake, this is one of the programs that we're considering at the new college, by the way. So
the reason why I asked that, I use that type data when I go out and talk to community leaders, to make sure that they support us, on these type efforts, and they talk to students. Support means talking to students and parents about why their kids should be involved with programs like this.
We know, from the data we have, if they belong to an organization, there's a couple of percentage points difference in their success rates normally. So we'll get that. That's a good point. We'll get that for you.
I can just incidentally, the cohort that I have this semester started with 25 students, and I have 24 right now.
See, that's outstanding.
Right. Yeah. So, but we are flagging those students. There is a service indicator when they register so that we can track those students until they complete or transfer.
Thank you. Any other comments, board members, questions?
This is great.
Okay, board members, you now have the opportunity to talk about meetings, conferences, campuses that you visited over the last month. And I have something, but I'm gonna let the other folks go first.
Yeah, no.
No, we'll do that during
Okay.
first reading.
I had the opportunity to participate in the Human Library at North Harris.
Yes.
And I have to tell you that that was great fun. I had 2 full tables. I couldn't stay there all day. Next year, I hope I'm told sooner what the date is so I can just block it off in my calendar. But to hear these students, and they thought that my book looked like it was something interesting. Okay, all right. If you receive an invitation to do something like that, I encourage you to do so. It was good for all concerned.
And I echo what you're saying. I guess I was there a couple of days. This is my second year doing this, and I really, really, really enjoy it. I only do it an hour each time, each day. But as Linda mentioned, I'll probably do much more than that next year. Yeah. Any other board members?
Yeah, just a brief comment. I want to say that I'm working with Leanne Nutt on a book, and I've got a really good deal. She's doing all the work. But I'm going to get my name on the cover.
Oh.
But I want to say, this is going to be a terrific book because it's going to be the GRIT program, and it's going to deal with the whole concept of kids who triumphed over adversity. And my job is simply to collect as many of these stories as I can, and I'm getting a ton of them. And you ought to see them. They're just warm and wonderful, of kids who were in terrible shape for all kinds of reasons and then got beyond it. And how they're going to handle the book is she's writing all the copy, and all I'm going to do is to splice in throughout the book these stories. So you'll read what she has said in wisdom, and then you will find these stories throughout the book. And I think it's going to be a fun book to read because it not only demonstrates the GRIT concept, but it shows you that it works with real kids. And wait till you see these stories. They're just magnificent.
Now,
Anyway.
I have a question about that, Ron and Leanne. So what's the age group for kids for whom you're looking for examples of grit?
Well, what I've been doing is dealing with college kids.
I mean, not all college students are kids. Some of them have kids.
Okay. Well, people roughly from the age of 14 to 60.
Today is his birthday.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
How old are you today?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
80 years old.
3 days ago, I turned 80. Now, they say that as you get older, you get wiser, which means at 80, I'm smart as hell.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Leanne, I hope that the board and staff get a complimentary copy of the book as soon as it comes off the press. Just kidding. Just kidding.
No, pay for it.
Yeah. Any other board members with any activity? I was hoping either Ken, Miriam, or Art would say something, but I'll do it. On, I think it was November the 29th, we had a meeting with Chancellor Head, and Helen was also in attendance, and I don't think I'm missing anyone else. And, I'm sorry, Quentin. Gee whiz. The chief, yeah. Most of you heard the announcement, concerning the seventh college, the seventh college, that's the correct word, and what the intent, of the seventh college was. And so the big question mark that was up there in the sky, what are you going to call this place? And I don't know how many recommendations were received, but it was a lot of them, 25 or 30. And anytime you start naming things, everyone has an opinion, but you can only call it one thing. So the 4 board members whose district falls into that particular college, we listened to all of the comments and recommendations and et cetera. And I hope I'm saying it correctly, we agreed that we should call it LSC Houston North, with each one of the campuses under the bottom. LSC Houston North Victory, LSC Houston North Greensport, Houston, and et cetera, and et cetera. And so I think I know we came to consensus on that. And I believe in giving credit where credit is due. Kyle gave us, solved a lot of issues that we had with coming up with that. So thanks, Kyle, for providing that data. And so with that, we are going to proceed, meaning Quentin. When I say we, that means Quentin and et cetera. It's going to proceed with all of the work that's necessary to get this new campus operational. And and I kind of mentioned the same thing to Dr. Head that I mentioned all the time. Almost with anything that's new, tweaks have to come along, and I view tweaks as being positive and not negative. So we're going to hopefully, I know we're going to measure the performance of our students and make tweaks if tweaks are necessary without being told to make those tweaks. And Dr. Head, I probably said something that may not be exactly correct. I'm not 80 yet, I'm close to it, I'm 71. And so clear up anything that I may have confused the group.
Just to quote Dr. Trowbridge, Quentin is going to do all the work and the board gets to take the credit for it. So no, what we met and talked about was just generally what we're trying to do, and we'll share that information. We're just kind of laying things out the way we see it and getting some input from their areas. And so we'll share that with the board and all the employees. So this is a lengthy process. It's not just something you go in there for an hour and meet and go, okay, we're set and running here. We still have to get all the approvals. Quentin is doing forums. We've done forums at every location. He's going back and having more intensive meetings. And he's creating committees, subcommittees, and we'll share all that with you. I'll send you an overview of what he's, the overview that he sent me, and I'll send it to the board, and then we're going to send it out to everybody to make sure you know what's going on.
And you're right. People have congratulated me on coming up with this idea, and I said, well, it wasn't me, but I'm supporting it. So, thanks. Any other comments? If not, we will move on to citizens' participation. No. Oh, yes, we do. I'm sorry. Thank you for keeping me on the agenda. No. We have one board committee report on the book. Oh, yeah, that's right. We're going right. Helen, do we have any citizens' participation? It's on there, yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm John Bergduff, representing the American Federation of Teachers. Tonight, there are a number of policy proposals receiving first or second readings. None of them are listed as action items, so we're expecting they will be coming up for votes in February or later. So although it's early, we would like to speak in favor of an amended policy proposal that is getting a second reading tonight. In particular, we recommend your support at the appropriate time of the amendment to the non-discrimination policy to protect the rights of employees based on gender identity and gender expression. Transgender rights have long been a priority for the AFT. Alan Hall and I brought up this issue some 2 years ago or more in a conversation with Dr. Head. We have written in support of these rights in The Advocate on several occasions. Alan spoke about this topic in February when these categories were being added to non-discrimination policies for students. You may remember hearing from Noah Miller, a student from Lone Star College Cy-Fair who spoke about his brother, a transgender high school student. We are looking forward to having these same protections extended to employees soon. In my own department at Cy-Fair, we have 2 transgender women on our faculty, one an adjunct and the other a dual credit instructor. So these rights have a very human face to me. We are pleased that the college is already taking concrete steps to provide for the needs of transgender students and employees by incorporating gender-neutral restrooms in construction projects. Gender identity and gender expression are not listed as protected categories in either federal or state law. In fact, as we saw in this last legislature, there are many forces in the state of Texas that are openly hostile to transgender people. Lone Star College could have taken the position that the law does not require us to protect these rights. The AFT is greatly pleased that the college has decided that sometimes it is necessary to do more than what the law minimally requires because it is right, it is fair, it is just, and it is humane. These are the principles that, if we commit ourselves to them in all of our policy decisions, will contribute to the building of a great college. Thank you so much for your kind consideration and best of wishes for the very happiest of holiday seasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Birdoff.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Birdoff, thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda is consideration of the consent agenda. And there are 31 items on the consent agenda. Item 15 is being pulled, and item 25 will be considered separately. Board members, any other items?
20, you said 25?
Yeah, 25 will be considered separately.
26.
26? Okay. Any others?
Yeah, 20, 21, 22, and we can consider those together. They all deal with pretty much the same
Okay.
thing.
21, 22?
20, 21, 22.
20, 21, 22, okay. All right. So we'll start first with getting a motion for items 1 through 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 23, 24, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31.
So moved.
Second? Second. Okay, it's been moved and properly second that we adopt those particular items. All those in favor vote by the usual sign.
Aye.
Consent separately. Oh, we did. That was not included. Yeah. Okay, all those in favor, vote by the usual sign.
Mario? I'm sorry, sir, just one clarification. I think that Trustee Lloyd asked for 26 to be considered separately, and when you were reading the motion, you said 26. I just want to make sure.
Okay, well, that was a mistake. 26 will be considered separately. So let me do it again to make sure that we have it on the records correctly. Items 1 through 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 23, 24, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. All those we have a motion already on those particular items. Since we have a motion and a second, all those in favor vote by the usual sign.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Okay. Dave, would you talk to us about item 25, please? Item 25 deals with the approval of the CAFR and independent auditors report.
Yes, we met and received the auditor's report this afternoon, and further explanations from our staff and their support that the auditors explained that they explained that our folks were prompt in providing them the required information and answering questions. In wrapping it all up, they gave a unmodified opinion, and as audits go, that's the highest ranking of any audit. That's the way you want to receive them, as unmodified. And as such, it's our committee's recommendation to the board that we accept the draft as our final audit for this year.
But before that, Jennifer has a presentation that she would like to make.
Yes.
Too. So Jennifer, you can go ahead and proceed at this particular point, and then we'll come back with a motion.
Okay, yes, thank you. So what the unmodified opinion from the auditors means is that the information as provided in this annual financial report can be relied upon as being correct. It is Lone Star College, it is the Financial Operations and Facilities Division that actually puts together this financial report. So what the auditors are saying is that this report, as far as they can tell, is correct. That's what the unmodified opinion tells you. And so what I then wanted to do here is give you a quick summary of what this report actually says, the financials in this report. So just up here, I have the quick agenda of a few things that I want to go through. Point you to the 3 key reports that are in this book. Everyone should have a copy of it at your spot. Sorry, I'm hitting the microphone. And so I want to run through those 3 key reports, and from those reports you can see the college's net position, net income, the cash position, a few things that I'd like to know on the balance sheet. And as I go through this, I'm going to point out that the way we have to report is as a special purpose government engaged in business type activities. And you'll see where I'm going to point out where it's reflected our business type activities and how we have to structure the financial reports. So here's just some key terms that you'll see as I go further into the presentation. So here's the key reports, 3 key reports. First is the statement of net position. If you have your book, it is on page 32. This is also known in sort of more layman's terms as the balance sheet. So this is the first of the 3 key reports. The second is on page 34. This is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. This is also known as the income statement, and sometimes also referred to as a profit and loss.
Let me add something. So, board, this is an overview. We were planning on spending more time when we have the retreat, as much detail as you want over the finances. We were going to spend some time over what's now a 7-year plan, but we thought it'd be good to go through the kind of the Finance 101 while we're doing this audit report, and then we'll come back. So if there's something that doesn't make sense here, we'll wait till the retreat or we'll do it next time. So.
Yes, I have tried to keep this just very high level 101, and I'm happy to go through it at a deeper level. And then just so going to the 3rd key report is the statement of cash flows, and that is on page 37. And what I've tried to reflect here is the connection between these 3 reports. The balance sheet is always just a single snapshot in time, so it gives all of the balances and the values of our assets and our liabilities at first August 31st, 2016, and then August 31st, 2017. So at the beginning and at the end of the fiscal year, just that snapshot in time. The income statement is really what then reports to you the activity that occurs in the interim period between that. And us working in finance, part of our checking of this book is we're doing the ticking and tying to make sure that you can mathematically get from one statement to the next. And then the connection too between the balance sheet and the cash flow statement is really kind of drilling down into just one line on the balance sheet, the cash and cash equivalents line. The cash flow statement then shows you what cash activity occurred, again, between those two snapshots in time that is shown on the balance sheet. So looking first at the balance sheet on page 32, at the very bottom of the page is where you can see for 2016 and 2017 the college's net position. Now this net position, it's not cash. It is the amount by which assets is greater than our liabilities. Okay, so assets, right, it is going to include our cash, but it's also going to include the value of all of our capital assets, our buildings, our furnishings, our infrastructure. And then, of course, our liabilities is going to be our bonds, net pension liability, various things like that. So at the beginning of the year, our assets exceeded our liabilities by $225 million. During the course of the year, on the income statement, on the statement, it's referred to as the increase in net position, but sort of what I think more commonly called the net income of Lone Star College for fiscal year 2017 was $9.5 million. So this is what increased our net position to end fiscal year 2017 at $234 million. So then going to page 34 is the income statement, just to highlight a few things here. Now I mentioned there's a reason I wanted to highlight that we have to structure these financial reports as a business type activity. So in operating revenues, the operating revenues as we report them does not include property taxes and the state appropriations. The operating revenues pretty much predominantly includes tuition and fees, those revenues that we receive from our students. In this case, it is looking at us as if we were, say, a private sector company. What revenues does our customers bring in? That's the $112 million in operating revenues. The operating expenses is, of course, most of what it costs to operate the college. In 2017, that was $439 million. So prior to considering our special purpose government status, we would be operating at a loss of $328 million. Okay, but now you do obviously have to include the property taxes and state appropriations, and I mean the purpose of that is to help defray the costs to students to pay their tuition for their education. So those non-operating revenues, primarily from property taxes and state appropriations, came in at $337 million in 2017. So the combination of all of that is what resulted in the net income of $9.5 million and increased our net position.
So let me make sure everybody gets this, because when I saw it, I thought she's made a big mistake here. We did not have an operating loss. So we actually had, well, you can see our net income was $9.5 million. So it's just the way they're doing it in these statements.
Yeah, and I mean, that's part of why I want to go through this, because if you open up the statements, you see this is what it's called in the statements as an operating loss. That is what it would look like if we were, say, a private sector company charging the tuition rates that we were and not receiving property taxes and state revenues. So no, we are not operating at an actual loss. We do have a positive net income of $9.5 million. So then to go through the cash activity, again, kind of flipping back to page 32, the statements in net position. Now, the very first line of this report for 2016 and 2017 is where you can see the cash and cash equivalents of Lone Star College. Now, this is not the cash reserves that we've referred to before in that 16%. This is literally all of the cash that Lone Star College has for all of our activities. So at the beginning of fiscal year 2017, that was at $137 million. During the course of 2017, we added 120 million and ended the year at 256 million. There we go. So
Let me make sure they understand. Can you go back to that slide?
Yep.
So that's just a snapshot, but then we've got a cash reserve account, or we will in our reporting, in our monthly reporting. Is that what you're calling it, the cash reserve? Some title like that?
The cash reserves, yes, are the funds that are not completely free and clear to spend on whatever we want, but much more so than a lot of what's in here. And that cash reserve is part of this 256 million. Right. This 256 million includes all of the cash that we have on hand.
So our cash reserve, though, will be around 16% by the end of somewhere.
Right, we're shooting for, I think it was about 52 million to get to the 16%. Yes.
Jennifer, I just want to make sure I understand something. So our net increase in income was 9.5 million, right?
The net income, yes,
Okay.
was 9.5 million.
Where did that come from?
So if I go back here, you can see where I've shown the sort of the difference from 2016. So in 2016, the net income was 6 million. And so this year, we did increase that by 3.6. So you can see where we've increased over last year. But it's going to come in various line items, right? Okay. I've summarized this in 4. In your book, you can see a whole page.
Okay.
And that's just the key reports. And then I can definitely go in. There's further schedules.
Is that how much money we
breaking
added
this out
to
even further.
Is that how much money we added to the reserves this year? That's a surplus that we have?
No. So this net income from the income statement is the activities that occurred over the year. That cash reserve is cash.
Separate account.
Right. This income statement is a report of activities that occurred, which some are cash, some are non-cash. For example, depreciation expense is included in an income statement.
But we took in 9.5 million more than we spent. Is that correct?
Yes. So this added to our net position.
Right.
Yes.
Which that money then went over into the reserves.
This is not necessarily cash money. That's
okay.
Yeah. Okay. It did help augment our reserve. Yeah. In general, our positive activity. Yes.
That's what I wanted you to say. Thank you.
We like that the number doesn't have parentheses around it.
Well, so if I can show here the cash flow statement, right? So this is where you can actually see what cash has been added in different places. You're still not quite getting at the reserve here, but a little bit closer. Here, what I can really show, though, is the majority of the reason why we have this additional 120 million in cash is because in January 2017, we issued bonds to fund the phase 2 of capital projects, right? So that bond issuance was 150 million. So we received those proceeds into the capital projects funds. So that is the primary reason that in 2017, net cash flows, we saw an increase of 120 million in all of our cash on hand. And that's where you see the 110 million in the net cash used by financing activities. That's where that falls in. But so if you are kind of excluding that line item and looking at the rest of that, the net cash used by operating activities and the net cash used by non-operating activities, those are the two places, as I mentioned, the property taxes and state revenues is included in the non-operating activities. So the net cash used by operating activities, that's where you're really seeing the tuition and fees and most of the expenses that it takes to operate the college. So again, if we were sort of a private sector business, we would actually have been short cash of 287 million, but that's where it gets covered by those property taxes and state revenues. And so the 120 million, if you backed out the 110 million for financing activities, that's where we sort of added about $10 million in cash if you're kind of excluding the financing activities element.
If all this looks complicated, it's because it is complicated. And the book you have in front of you, if if you don't have anything else to do, you might want to take a look at the annual report. You can see why it's so important that we have somebody of her caliber and her staff, which is why I was glad she introduced them tonight, because they're new, and we need people to pay attention to what we're doing. This is a big, big operation, a very big operation. So. More? Are you?
I'll stop soon, I promise.
Oh, you're good.
So I just wanted to make a quick connection between the income statement and the cash flow statement. So this is where I was trying to point out that the income statement does include some non-cash, both revenues and expenses that are non-cash. But it was about $40 million of net non-cash activities that are reflected on the income statement. For example, the depreciation expense, some of the net pension liability that we're required to recognize. But then that gets you to the $287 million negative sort of net cash flow from operating activities. But then, of course, we had the $294 million in cash flows from the non-operating activities, which is the property taxes and the state revenues. This one, really the only thing I want to point out here is a very positive, that we increased the unrestricted net position by $21 million. Really the main reason I did want to put this up here is the last time we talked to S&P, they do look at that 16% as one metric, but they do look at multiple metrics. The other metric that this last set of conversations that they really seemed to focus on was this unrestricted net position. They wanted to understand why previously the unrestricted net position had decreased. And they wanted, and this was before this book was prepared, they wanted to have an idea from us of where we thought it was going to end 2017. And I was very happy to be able to tell them we were expecting it to increase significantly, and it did by $21 million. So that's the main takeaway from here, is that's a positive improvement to that metric that S&P in particular was paying attention to. And then just some things that I wanted to note, if you really wanted to be able to find them, impacts of, say, Hurricane Harvey on our financial statements. If you're on page 32, you can see about the third line down, accounts receivable, there's roughly a $10 million increase. That was us booking the insurance proceeds. We had not actually received that cash yet, but since we had good expectations that we would, and Hurricane Harvey technically took place in fiscal year 2017 at the very end, that's shown as an account receivable. Also, I just wanted to point out too, where you can see the increase in bonds payable non-current portion. Again, this is the bond issuance that we had occur in FY17. And then the last thing I wanted to note, mainly because at least to me it stood out, if you notice about 2/3 of the way down, there's a local government liability. This, to me, it stood out because it was 0 in 2016, and then in 2017 it's $16 million. This is reflective of Aldine ISD payment to us for doing the construction on their behalf for East Aldine Early College High School. So they did give us $16 million, which is included in our cash balance. So within that $256 million is also $16 million that we got from Aldine ISD, but then we are also recognizing a liability for that amount. And I had more, but I think we can stop there. I'm going to stop.
Well, yeah. Now, but you did.
Those are the highlights. I can definitely go deeper. I had gone deeper, but we can definitely do more.
Idea is to give the board members an opportunity to go through this big book.
Yes.
And then on, I think it's March 23rd, is when we have our retreat. And so I encourage you, though, to read through it prior to that. And Jennifer, if I'm not making a mistake, if I am making a mistake, tell me. The board members have questions, feed those questions into you before the retreat, so that if you have to do preparatory work, that can already be done before you get there. But if you come up with a question once you get there, you'll be free to ask. But the data may not be there. So you've heard Dave's report about the confidence in the audit report from the auditors and et cetera. You've listened to Jennifer's report. And I think Dave made a motion earlier. At this point in time, I would ask for a second to adopt. Well, go ahead and make your motion again, and then we'll.
In that the auditors have pledged the lives of their firstborn, that the information contained in this can be relied upon for its truthfulness and thoroughness, we, the committee, would move that the board as a whole adopt the audit as it's been presented in draft.
Okay. So moved. Second. Okay. Any comment, additional comments?
No, sir.
If not, all those in favor vote by the usual sign.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good job. You know what? This is not accounting 101. I had accounting 101. This is more difficult.
Yeah, this is not accounting 101.
Don't leave because we have a question on 26 in a minute.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got you. Ken, you mentioned you wanted us to pull item
26.
Not pull it, at least, but consider
Yeah,
it separately. What's your question?
The last meeting we had Blackman Mooring, the 5.8 million. Is this in addition to that?
No, it's not an
It's
addition, it's the
separate?
new total. It's increasing it from the previous amount of the 5-something million. It's
5.86.
increasing it by 3 million to the 8.8 million.
Can we get a breakdown? Because one of the questions, you had mentioned something like $20,000 a day.
Yes.
For the
And I do
electricity.
have details on that I can get to you. I've gotten that. We also have invoices in from them with, for I think about $2.5 million worth of payments, and each invoice has literally over 100 pages of backup. So I can definitely try to put all that together in a way that's.
Yeah, I was just curious because our total bill, Lone Star total bill is like 20,000. And Kingwood with 0.5 megawatts, that's about $1,500 a day just for the Kingwood site overall. So that's why I was curious as to see what the 20,000
20,000 a day. Yes, and I do have that, and a lot of it is in the rental cost of the equipment itself.
Okay.
That's your question?
That's it.
Okay. Okay, at this point in time, I'd like to have a motion to ratify item 26.
So moved.
Second. We moved and properly second that we approve item 26. All those in favor, vote by the usual sign.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion passed. Okay. We will now move on to.
Nope.
Oh.
22?
Oh.
Yeah. Just, we can
go ahead.
consider all three of them together.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So this is tuition increases for these non-credit students. So I just had questions. This includes these non-credit students, so I understand who we're competing against. Private companies? Private tutors?
No.
In test preparation for some of these?
You want
For
to
the GED training, the ESL training? Who's the competition? Because that's mentioned here. And then please. And then the second part of that, this relates to both in-district and out-of-district students.
Correct. And so, yes, to answer your first question, that's exactly what we're competing with. And so, for example, if you look at the GED tuition change, it's no accident that we started paying GED instructors $34.83, and the market rate for a GED instructor is $35, right? So so not only are we competing with those programs for the students themselves, but we're actually competing for the instructors. And so we have to pay the $34.83 so that we can compete in that labor market for those instructors. And so that's the reason that you see the increase, because we went, like the board agenda item says, from $24.85 to $34.83, and we haven't increased that fee in 7 years, and so that shortfall has to come from somewhere.
Okay. And this apply, and then it is and out-of-district students this
Correct,
applies to?
it's both.
Because this is non-credit, so it doesn't really
Correct.
matter. Okay,
Correct.
thanks.
I want to make sure we're trying to get our salaries up that are competitive, even whether it be credit or non-credit. We have a gap right now, even in between our credit and non-credit. And some of the courses are pretty much the same, so there's a couple of different reasons for this. And we're trying to get these programs to pay for themselves in addition.
And so to sort of answer a question that you typically ask is this sort of the only way? And I can tell you that yes, because the classes make at 12.
Right.
And so they're not profitable until 17 right now. And we rather give the 12 students that have signed up the go-ahead than wait on the other 5 and then not be able to offer the class anyway. And so this is really the only way to fix the shortfall.
One thing that makes this different, and I asked them next year to do them all at the same time, credit, non-credit, everything, and not come back in the middle of the year like this. It's a little different, but non-credit's been working on a different kind of schedule. But
I guess, my question, my reason for being concerned if we're competing for these students is that we've set a rate into which it's still attractive to come here and to not go to a private tutor.
Oh, yes, no, it's most definitely a lot less expensive than private.
Yeah. Good.
Okay, thanks, Callie. Any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay, I'd like to have a motion on consent agenda items 20, 21, and 22.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we adopt items 20 through 20, 21, 22. All those in favor, vote by the usual sign.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion passed. Okay, now we can move to policy reports and considerations. Mario, one of the things we'd like to do, there are 4 items, if I'm not mistaken, that are up for first reading. And could you basically summarize each one of those and see if we have any questions from our board members?
I'll try my best. So the very first one, and so I'm looking at policy reporting consideration number 1, is the trustee misconduct policy. And so a few months ago, in a college far, far away, there was some alleged trustee misconduct that hit the papers. And so whenever those things happen, one of the first things that I start looking at is, okay, if that were to happen at Lone Star, how would we deal with that? And the short answer is that before this policy, there was really no way to deal with trustee misconduct in an outright manner. There were sort of some other things that could be relied upon in the spirit, or as the Supreme Court once said, in the penumbras, but I wanted to make sure that we had something that was explicit, and so this is the outcome of that. We took comments on this from September 25th through October 25th, and we received 0 comments. And so here we are. So that's the first reading about that. Is there any questions on the trustee misconduct proposed policy? And so our plan is to bring that up for a second reading and a final vote in February. And so that's that one.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The next one is the change in contract status. And so the next, let me make sure they're in the right order. The next 3, historically, since I've been here in August of 2015, these 3 policies always sort of get grouped together. Anytime that we modify the grievance policy, the change of contract status gets a look, and so does the termination policy. And so we go out of our way to separate it from the general HR policy, which is something that's on second reading, because these 3 policies tend to be the ones that are sort of the most contentious. There's a lot of strong opinions on all sides about these, and so to be fair to everyone and have robust debate about them, we separate them out and we put them all sort of separately so that we can discuss them one by one. So the change in contract status policy is the one that is policy reporting consideration number 2, so it should be the second one. The major 3 revisions that we're recommending is deleting the reference to a board appeal and the definition of procedural regularity because of the proposed change to the grievance policy, and so we want uniformity essentially across all 3 of these policies. If the Board of Trustees, for one reason or another, doesn't believe in board appeals to the board anymore for the termination policy, then it is our position that it should also apply to the change of contract status policy, and it should also apply to the grievance policy. So that's the first sort of major amendment there. The second one is that we have had sort of discussions back and forth, and I think people sort of tend to conflate those three policies. Maybe it's part of maybe it's because we do sort of lump them together to sort of process them. But one of the things that sort of has gotten very confused is where an attorney can be present and when an attorney can advocate on behalf of, I'm going to call them the litigants, right? And so in the change of contract status policy, it's always been our practice that if you have a lawyer, they can advocate for you. And that wasn't explicit. And so now we're making it explicit. If you look on page 1 under appealing a contractual change of status recommendation, we make it very clear that the employee and the administration may be represented during the appeal process, and the selected representative may, however, actively advocate on the person's behalf during the appeal proceeding. So that makes it very clear that when there's a change of contract status and your job is on the line or a longer term contract is on the line, then yes, you will have an advocate that can essentially step into your shoes and argue your case for you. And that sort of goes both ways. So the administration can also have its lawyer, and then it ends up being one lawyer against another lawyer. And so in change of contract status, that's the main change. The other sort of small change that we had is we've made it very clear that a chief area officer, so we've had some confusion about who is a chief area officer. And when I came here 2.5 years ago, we had a lot more chiefs than we do now. Right, so we had a chief foundation officer, we have chief emergency officer, we have chief of police, and so when you have a chief area officer in the policy, it confuses people about, okay, if I have a problem with, let me use a position that doesn't exist anymore, the chief foundation officer. If I have a problem with that person, who's my next level appeal? And so what we're making clear now is that chief area officer reporting directly to the chancellor. So if you're a chief X and you don't report directly to the chancellor, that does not apply to you. And so we're making that clear. We've collected comments on this from October 26th through November 27th. And collectively, again, people confuse or conflate, depending on your perspective, the three policies. And so we've grouped them together because when comments come in, they kind of tend to jump around between the three policies. And so we got 44 public comments for those, and we created a PDF, and all of you should have received them. I can tell you that Dr. Head has them for sure. And if you would like to see those public comments, they're public records. If you don't have them or you got them in an email, let me know and we will PDF them for you and we will shoot them over to you. We don't edit them, and you can see sort of good, bad, and different. We get it all, from the grammarians to the philosophers, the code writers, the code breakers. We get it all. So you can have a copy of that. The first reading for that was December 7th tonight, and then of course we're going to try to bring it back for an action item on February 7th. Yes, sir.
The committee received those, but not the board entirely.
Okay, well there you go. Well, they're public record, and you're the trustees, so I'm telling you on the record, on camera, that if you want to see them, I'd be happy to share them with you.
We'll just go ahead and send you we'll send them on PDF and you can look at them.
All right, and so that's sort of, any questions on the change of contract status, first reading? All right. So the second one is the employee grievance and review process. And again, here we deleted the board appeal and the procedural regularity definition. And so those go hand in hand because the basis for the definition of procedural regularity is the genesis from which the appeal to the board springs, right? And so if you are taking the board appeal off the table, then the jurisdiction, if you will, of the board to hear appeals is a nullity because you no longer need it based on the fact that there are no board appeals, right? So you don't need the threshold for when something goes to the board. And so that is the point of that. We also highlight that citizens can still and are encouraged to use citizen participation for any type of grievance. I mean, you have full First Amendment rights to come up here and basically say whatever your heart desires within some very sort of content neutral rules. Outside of that, you're free to say whatever you want up here within those parameters. And so, Trustee Good, you raised a question, I think, last time we talked about this in open session, and you asked, what about the right to grieve? That's in state statute, and particularly Texas Government Code 617.005. And so we've done our due diligence in the Office of the General Counsel, and we found a Supreme Court opinion that we'd be happy to share with you that says that essentially the provision of that citizen participation satisfies the constitutional requirement to allow someone to have a grievance in front of somebody that could effectuate change in whatever the grievance is about. And so we did sort of look into that. October 26th through November 27th, again, we collected feedback. We left it up an extra day because it fell on a weekend. And so that's why you see sort of a little bit more than 30 days. Again, we received 44 comments on that apparently the chair is going to be sharing with all of you. And so the first reading for that is on December 7th, and the second proposed reading for that and action item is February 1st, 2018. Any questions about the employee? Yes.
You have a question?
And so we actually, let me actually clarify because I don't know who wrote this. So for all I know, it was you, Chancellor Head, but here goes. These are first readings, and so I keep saying that they come up for approval in February, and that's the normal course of business. The normal course is that first reading is sort of the, hey, this is what we're going to do, and then the second reading is the action item. Now, with some of these HR policies, I unilaterally made the decision to put them up for a third reading because they are contentious, and I do want people to feel like they have the opportunity to voice whatever concern they have to y'all. And so that's why for those HR policies, we did a third reading, but our normal course is a first and a second reading. And actually the board policy manual says that you actually don't even have to have a second reading. You could have the first reading and enact it on the very first reading. And so that's sort of why we're doing that. Any questions about the grievance policy?
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I understand that the Supreme Court of Texas has ruled that citizens desiring to address the board is adequate. But just as we decided to go beyond the protected categories in our non-discrimination policy to include gender identity and gender expression, we can choose to go beyond the minimum that's required by the Supreme Court of Texas by allowing our employees to have an appeal to the board.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other comment, board members?
I have a comment.
Okay. Then
I haven't been here long, but Mario, have we had instances where in grievances with folks going up here and talking to the board about it or no?
I can't.
That should be the first one.
Hear you very well.
My question is, have we had instances in the past where we had, former staff come to the board and talk about just grievance issues, or no?
Yes, we have.
Let me ask you a question, and I'm sorry for my ignorance here, but I know we, in putting together any policy, we have to be aware, or we need to consider whatever the statutes are we dealing more with state, because I know you mentioned a couple of state statutes, or at least were addressed. What about if it's federal constitutional rights, whatever? Is that out somewhere in the state law as well, or how does that work? And
Right, so the First Amendment of the United States Constitution mirrors a great deal of the Texas Constitution, the analog there. And so both of those are essentially dealt with by what I just said with the citizen participation. And that's why I said you basically have a First Amendment right during citizen participation, except for sort of content neutral rules, like you can't use people's names and you can't sort of attack people or threaten people with violence. Outside of that, that's sort of what satisfies that part of it. And
so is the public participation, does that also involve employee? There's no separate category for employees or anything?
Correct. And so actually, there's nothing that stops me, for example, from signing up for the citizen participation and coming up here as a private citizen and disavowing everything I've said as the chief legal officer. Right? And in fact, I can tell you that I have dreamt of that before, but so what I'm telling you is that that's a distinction that we have to make. When someone comes up here and is citizen participation, there's a reason why it's called citizen participation, not employee participation or non-employee participation, because the speech that is being expressed most of the time in citizen participation is First Amendment speech, because it's a matter of public concern being expressed by a citizen against a governing board, right? And so that does have First Amendment protections that, for example, if I say the same things right now while I'm up here as the general counsel, I would not have those protections. And so, yes, there is a fundamental difference between what goes on in citizen participation and what goes on right now.
So if an employee has a personal grievance or concern or whatever, and that person speaks during that part of the meeting, that is not as an employee?
Right, and so that's actually a huge body of law that has to do with when is an employee, especially a public employee, speaking as an employee, and when are they speaking as a citizen?
Right.
And so there's a lot of body of law out there that says, the most famous case is Ceballos out of California. It was a Supreme Court case where it was a district attorney that basically said a bunch of stuff that his supervisor think he shouldn't have said, and he said, well, I'm a district attorney. I was saying it as a First Amendment, and the Supreme Court said, no, you were complaining about sort of your status as an employee. And when you do things like that, then that's not as protected. And so to answer your question, it really depends, and it's this huge body of law, when a public employee is speaking as an employee and when they're speaking as a citizen. And so we could be here all night talking about sort of that constitutional analysis, but I can tell you that by and large, when you come up here, most of the time, you're going to be speaking as a citizen, not as an employee. And I can tell you, Trustee Saldivar, that the times that people have come up here to grieve, usually it's grieving terminations, right? And so at that point, if I've already lost my job, then I don't have much to lose to come up here and sort of air my grievance in the public citizen participation.
And so if, because I know that some parts of the policy, if someone has a grievance, or if he wants to go, so a person, he or she wants to go to court, they say, I understand they have to first go through other don't go through us, right, through the administration, the different levels.
They actually, it depends on what the claim is. So for certain types of claim, yes, there's what's called an administrative exhaustion requirement.
Exhaustion, yeah.
And so you have to go through the administrative proceedings.
And that's what I'm concerned about is does that, so if they come speak to that qualify as having gone through that, and then now they can
so the way that sort of administrative exhaustion is governed, especially in federal court, is did you go as high as you needed to go before you finally got an answer that was no, right? Okay. And so the difference, for example, in these policies is that right now with a board appeal, that process isn't finally exhausted until about 60 days later than it would be if the appeals ended with the chancellor. And so it's just like a long balloon. If you squeeze over here, it gives you more rights over here, but then you lose rights over here, right? So the exhaustion requirement will be postponed in a longer process, but some would argue that you get more due process if the board can hear it. And so that's sort of where different philosophies come into place.
Right. Yeah, I think that's where the difference is.
So just so I'm clear, because I lost focus there for a second.
Look into my world.
But that's just me. But we could always hear from public. We can always hear from employees. That's what this time is for. But in this case, if an employee is terminated or has a grievance and the board is nixed from the appeal process, there's not much we can do about it if we adopt this policy, because they're no longer employees. We have no formal authority to say, go back down, correct the procedural irregularity, and see what happens after that.
And so that's sort of one of the things that perhaps I haven't done a good job of explaining in the past when I've been up here, is that when you appeal to the board, we've been so focused on who gets to hear what that we haven't really come on the backside of it, which is the remedy, right? So if I get an appeal to the board and the board thinks, yes, grievant, you are completely correct, what can the board do to right that wrong?
Remand it back down.
Right, and the list of things that the board can do is very small, right? And so they can write policies, and you can hold Dr. Head accountable and say, Dr. Head, you're violating a bunch of policies and procedures. And so when Dr. Head's contract comes up for renewal, you can sort of hold him accountable based on sort of the grievances that you've heard from folks and the evidence. But that's sort of really where the the rubber meets the road is what can the board really do on day-to-day activities, right? No one on the board is going to fill out a PMR or a JPR to give somebody a raise. No one is going to go into Taleo and sort of screen candidates, right? And so that's the logistical problem.
And I agree, because I don't know what any of those things you just said are. But I do think that that's been a problem with this policy, is that the expectations of those bringing their grievance to the board have had an inaccurate idea of what the board can do.
Correct.
But at the same time, I'm sorry, but at the same time, just to finish my thought, at the same time, so that now, what he confirmed is that if they come as part of the public part here, and they've already been dismissed, whatever, that's not really part of the process anymore, is it?
No, but neither is it when they've already been dismissed and they have a board appeal.
That's not part of the process?
No, because they've already been terminated. That's what they're grieving.
I just want to make sure that we follow whatever statutes and requirements and stuff, so.
We're on the same page.
Okay.
We're
But
eye
the
to eye.
fact,
Yes, sir.
okay, so we've just talked about how little the board can do if there's an appeal to the board to address the situation. But these proposed policies make that even less, gives us even less of a role for addressing these things. And we all know that citizens desiring to address the board really is no remedy. If you're a staff person, it's very intimidating to come up to that podium and try in a clear and cogent manner to explain your situation. And we've also heard many, many times an explanation of why we can't respond to citizens desiring to address the board. If it's not on the agenda, we can't deliberate. We can't debate about it. So these policies take from the board what little ability we have to address the situation. And it's not about, do we trust Dr. Head or do we trust Mario Castillo? It's about principles. Policies should be enduring. Policies shouldn't be based on personalities. It's my opinion.
In my opinion, really, I don't want it to be simply to expedite the issue and get it go away. I mean, I hope that doesn't look like that when we don't want to consider, anything. I mean, I know that we have to go through, there's procedure in place, but the justification, I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. Why are we trying to just avoid that part? I know that maybe, is there anything else we can do to simply at least listen to the concerns or whatever, and then, no?
You, myself, we're on the policy committee, so we're more than welcome to sit down and write.
No, I'm not on the policy committee, but yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'm not talking not anymore, but yeah. No, I guess I want to make sure, I want to follow rationale. That's all it is.
And I guess to sort of answer you, Trustee Maria, and answer Trustee Good, no one can take anything from the board that the board majority doesn't vote for.
Absolutely.
And so the idea that, when you
No,
said,
you're right.
when you said this is going to be taken from the board, nothing is being taken from the board because the way this works is 5 of you have to agree with whatever it is that we're hunting up there.
That clarifies it.
Right?
I concede that point too.
Yeah. Thing I appreciate you is taking the opportunity, to explain to us, all of the issues that are concerned. I think you had something that you would like to read to the board also, don't you? Why don't you proceed?
By the way, before I forget it, Linda, the Open Meetings Act has at the local level, in part, been found unconstitutional. And it's my own view, with all who cares what I think, that it's unconstitutional in a couple of places. I told Rusty Hardin that. And he says, oh, I want you to testify. He's on the side of having found it unconstitutional. I think there are real flaws with the Open Meeting Act, and it encourages ignorance over knowledge. And so I might be testifying on that. I don't know. But I think it's a flawed policy. It really censors us. Really censors us. It denies us free speech. I think it's wrong. It ought to be revised. We're getting almost done, and they've saved the least for last. But I do want to read this statement.
Go proceed. Go ahead.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. As a means of explanation, I would like to give a short history of Lone Star College's grievance process. During the last administration, the employee grievance policy was grossly unfair to grievance. The administration set up a wired kangaroo court system against the grievance. I don't know if you know this, probably don't even care, but at the time I resigned as an adjunct at Lone Star College Montgomery in protest to how the administration treated two grievance. Later I ran for the board successfully. After that, Trustee Kyle Scott and I agreed that something had to be done about the unfairness, and so initiated revision toward a new policy. Later on, Trustee Linda Good joined with us in the revision of this grievance policy. We worked at length and painstakingly in drafting the new policy. Once our draft was completed, we shared it for clearance and possible revisions with all major entities within the college system, including faculty senate presidents and the AFT. The new policy permitted grievance appeals to be made to the board only in the event of the administration's violation of board policy in the form of what was called procedural irregularities. Subsequently, the board received 3 different case appeals alleging procedural irregularities, but the board found no violations of grievance policy or procedural irregularities. The major problem here was that the charge of procedural irregularities required the college to spend huge sums of money on legal fees. One of the board's charges in the policy manual is to vigilantly supervise college funds. So, presently the board, in this first reading, is being asked to drop the provision of procedural irregularities because, in my judgment, this process has not worked and is expensive. We will let final adjudication of all grievance appeals remain in the hands of the chancellor, who works hand in glove with the general counsel to ensure accuracy and fairness. Now the question is, will these two guys be fair? Will they be fair? I have worked with Chancellor Steve Head and General Counsel Mario Castillo for years. I'm with them all the time. I correspond with them. I email them. I go to events with them. I know these guys really well, and I know their characters well. They are good, wise, fair, moral individuals. I trust both beyond measure. They have and will continue to handle grievances fairly. Now, some have suggested that the administration resort to an outside mediator for resolution of grievance of appeals. Such, in my judgment, would be fatally flawed, a fatally flawed process in 2 ways. When we hired Chancellor Steve Head, his charge was to run the entire system, not part of it, handing over another part to an outside third party. 2, handling a grievance to an outside third party could easily and probably likely lead to politicizing the grievance process. E.B. White once observed, quote, "I have never seen a piece of writing, political or non-political, that doesn't have a slant. It slants the way a writer leans, and no man is born perpendicular. We all have biases. An outside mediator would have biases." The resolution of grievances should be kept, even potentially, out of political hands. Otherwise, as Hamlet said, we could fly to ills we know not of. As for the board's adjudicating grievance appeals, our charge up here is to set policy and to govern, not to administer. We adhere to this distinction both to our accrediting agency, which is SACS, and to the college's manual policy. And I'm going to read very quickly what these two items say. SACS says in one place, I won't cite the place, the governing board is free from undue influence from political, religious, or other external bodies and protects the institution from such influences. SACS also says there is a clear and appropriate distinction in writing and practice between the policy-making functions of the governing board and the responsibility of the administration and faculty to administer and implement policy. It separates the two entities. The college manual said the board focuses on policy, not administrative matters. It also says the board does not do the college's work, rather it establishes vision for the college's work by adopting policy. And finally, it said the board holds the chancellor responsible for implementing all board policies. And that's where we want to keep it, is there. Now, the chancellor has stated, what about the present system? It's new. It's new. And I know there are some things that Steve administratively, not policy-wise, but administratively wants to work on. I know he said he wants to tighten up the process from dean to vice president to president to chancellor. It is new. It needs some tightening up. Let me finish with this. This college is being run in exemplary fashion. I cannot imagine, and I say this in all honesty, I cannot imagine in the country a better chancellor than Steve Head, and I can't imagine a better general counsel than Mario Castillo. I am content to leave adjudication of issues, as we've discussed here, in their good hands.
Trustee Thornbridge, can I ask a question? Am I allowed to ask?
Go ahead.
I agree with you. I mean, I think we have the best administration, we've got the best legal counsel, best CEO, chancellor in the country, I think. But my question to you is, are we basically, because I mean, I think our role is basically, we don't have to do anything if everything's being run well, we just have to provide oversight, right? And in this particular case, are you saying that we give up our right or our responsibility for oversight in this particular instance? I mean, that's what it sounds like, because I mean, we leave administration to.
Yeah, in terms, the only oversight we could use was to look at if there were violations of policy.
Right.
What we're now saying is there have been no violations of policy. So yes, Linda got it right, and Kyle got it right. The board is going to be out of the adjudication business. We're out of it.
So,
yes.
so oversight begins at the beginning, and I mean, I just want to make sure that we're not giving up a responsibility that's ours. That's all I'm asking.
No.
No? I mean,
No.
oversight, that, assuming that, let me give you, and I know in law school you give all these different stories and examples, and we can discuss this forever, right? In terms of governance. Chancellor Head leaves, and somebody else comes in and decides to do something, promote somebody all the way to the top, and then that's it. We can't do anything because the policy says we can't get involved. Is that what would happen?
Yeah.
Huh?
We can fire.
Yeah, but not the person he just promoted, or right?
Pardon?
I'm just saying.
I wonder if I might say something by virtue of being on the board for a long time, I've been through a board review of one such, more than one. And from my perspective, I think everything Ron has said about our current administration is absolutely true. I feel a confidence level. But I can tell you that if it comes up to the board, my experience is that the board is shown the whole story, and not being in the trenches as the administration is, my take coming out was not only would I not uphold, would I not rescind the termination that we were looking at, I'd terminate every one of them. I'd terminate the whole bunch of them that let it get this. We were seeing smutty emails back and forth going on for a year. Things that should not have happened if the lower level administrators had been watching their jobs. It wouldn't have gotten that way. And I think we have made great strides in that our administrators all the way down to department heads are doing the job that they didn't do back then. And when it got to the point where they, and the policy did call for it to come to the board, and came before the board, it was, again, we weren't in the trenches, so they were all culpable in my idea, in my read of the incident. And I would caution anybody on the faculty and staff that if they want to take their dirty laundry out and put it into the hands of the lay board that are not administrators in your business, it won't bode well. So I think we've got it.
All right.
The most the board would ever do, in my mind, is if you bring it up to us, if we see it, if you can prove it to us that there's a validity to what you think is your case, good luck with it. And we may turn it back to the chancellor to review, but I see it's just not going to turn out well.
And I agree with you. I just want to make sure that we're not setting up a precedent where we really have a hands tied in this particular situation that we can't imagine. That's all I'm saying. I mean, if in a particular situation, we may want to provide some guidance or provide some input, and then all of a sudden he says, well, we said we're not going to get involved. That's all I'm saying. I'm sure that's not going to happen, but if it were the case, would we have that opportunity?
And I guess let me jump in here so I can address there's been a lot that's been said. So, President Murillo, the fundamental operational charge of this Board of Trustees is to pick a chancellor, right? And so that's actually in a whole separate section of the policy manual that makes it very clear that the day that Dr. Head gets 5 of you sort of in arrears in terms of the quality of his CEOship of this institution, that's the day that you are specifically empowered to tell Dr. Head goodbye, right? And to the extent that Dr. Head gets let go, and for example, I'm the rabble-rouser that's causing all the problems, I can pretty much assure you that I will probably be next, if not first, before Dr. Head, right? And so that's the fundamental charge of the board, is to pick the CEO, and that goes back to this remedy issue. To me, it's disingenuous to a staff employee to say, hey, let's give you an appeal, knowing full well that at the end of the day, you cannot effectuate the change in a practical sense in the way that would be meaningful to that employee. So if someone comes up here and says, I want a $5,000 raise, you don't know how to fill out the JPR, you don't know how to do the EPAR, you don't know how to do all of that. So you have to rely on telling Dr. Head to do it, and then if Dr. Head in this doomsday scenario or the new chancellor says, I'm not going to do it, then your only remedy, both under policy and law, is to discharge him from his job, right? And so that's how you govern the policy, and then you get a new chancellor in there, and that chancellor hopefully sees it.
One thing, Mario, thank you for your comments, and I think the discussion has been healthy,
Okay.
et cetera. And we're going to have other opportunities to make comments as
Yes, sir. I just have.
as this proceeds.
Can I?
But I also want to, Dr. Head, you have something you would like to say, so.
Well, two things. We have a dispute resolution.
Yes, that's what I was going to say next.
Piece. I also was going to request that he use like Chancellor X instead of my name.
Oh. Let the records reflect Chancellor X.
And for the record, this is not citizen participation, so I am not governed by that rule. But then this is a perfect example, right? So Dr. Head, the law says that I can use Dr. Head's name. And so Dr. Head tells me, don't use my name. So now if I keep using his name, I'm jeopardizing my own job.
That's correct.
Right? And so that's exactly my point. The other thing is that I can tell you for doomsday scenarios, that's my world. I live in a world where Dr. Head is not the chancellor anymore. I'm not the general counsel. And the true measure of these policies will be not what we do today as the current incumbents, but what future incumbents are constrained to do. So we're on the same page as regards that. Dr. Head and the dispute resolution center that we're talking about, that comes at the grievance policy stage. And so we have heard that people want a third party involved. And the compromise that we have sort of brokered is that the third party be involved at the very initial stages of the grievance, as opposed to sort of passing second judgment on Dr. Head's determinations as a CEO. And so we've actually shared a pilot program with the Faculty Senate presidents, wherein essentially it's a dispute resolution center. There will be a third-party mediator that gets called in by the Office of Organizational Development, so HR, legal, no one's involved. Essentially, it's faculty to faculty for now and faculty administrator, and so third-party mediator comes in, tries to sort of resolve the issue. If the issue doesn't get resolved, no lawyers on either side. Once someone brings a lawyer into it, which under the grievance policy, you have a right to, so once you have the policy right, the procedure can't be used, right, to overcome the policy. I do want to note that we do have an instance right now where I just want to share that you might believe that bringing a third-party mediator in there is a great idea until they disagree with you, right? And so we have that situation right now. We actually have a lawsuit going on right now where a faculty member is suing a third-party mediator because the mediator did not agree with the faculty member, right? And so that's sort of when you invite someone that's coming out from the cold, not custom with our culture, our hierarchy, and our administration, that is a risk that we are going to run. But that is a chancellor's procedure that's going to be built into the grievance policy so that you do have a procedural right to a mediator at the very early stages. You also, the faculty member and the employee have a right to a representative, and that representative is going to be selected among the faculty from the particular college by the faculty senate presidents. So the administration will not have essentially a say on who that representative is. Moreover, those representatives will be given a small stipend and or a release to encourage them to participate fully in the process so that we can stop having grievances sort of percolate, or I guess it's more like emanate all the way up the chain. And so we can sort of resolve them at an earlier stage, not involve legal, not involve HR, and essentially just have the two people and a mediator try to resolve it before it escalates. Any questions about that? And that's going to be a chancellor's procedure that Dr. Head is going to authorize, and we will try to get it going as early as this spring.
I don't have any questions on me.
At the end of the day, by the way, because Ron, Dr. Ron, Mr. Ron over there, Grandpa Ron, we are a political body ourselves. We are. I mean, we can't ever forget that. I mean, I know nobody everybody takes it as an insult, right? We are, we represent the community, the public, and we just don't want to think that we're administration. We're not. And fortunately, we don't have to deal with it. I mean, we try to avoid as much as possible, but I just want to think, I don't want us to think that we don't have that responsibility as a political body. We are.
Right? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jennifer, you're on again.
I had a question on page 88, table 32.
What's your question?
Footnote 12, right?
Don't let him intimidate you, Jennifer. Go ahead.
I'm good. Our monthly financial statements are presented for the month ended October 31st, 2017. If you look at, I'm going to go quickly through the revenues and expenditures because we are still early in the fiscal year. Revenues do seem to be coming in slightly low at 20.3% for this time of the year. And then expenditures are definitely coming in below average at 13.6% on page 2. A lot of that really, though, is what we're really trying to work on digging into right now is forecasting Kingwood's operating budget, right? Because of the way their operations have been over there, a lot of their operational expenses have been hitting the Hurricane Harvey fund with obviously a lot of the actual physical operations not ongoing on the campus. So that is something we are currently working on. And so when you go to page 3, the statement of revenues and expenditures, you will see that our forecasted variance is not showing any variance from budget. Really what I'm expecting is when you will see our first look at a forecasted variance when we're back here in February, because at that point in time, I hope we're going to have a good feel of in particular Kingwood's operating budget, but in addition, we will have enrollment numbers for then both the fall and the spring semester. So I would really expect to see our first look at a forecasted variance to budget when we come back in February. So really what I want to show you starting in this month's report is flipping to page 6. I mentioned last month that I was going to start including the financials of Fund 35, which is the fund where we are putting all of the Hurricane Harvey expenses. So here I just want to show the first page is the balance sheet for, this is only that fund. So in there you can see we have, at this point in time, we have received the $10 million of the insurance proceeds. And of course we have been spending it to cover the expenses as they've come in. So you can see the cash as of October 31st was $6.3 million in that fund. So that's the key piece I wanted to highlight on that report. And when you turn then to page 7, this is the statement of revenues and expenditures for that fund. So you can see we've spent a total of $3 million system-wide, with $2.9 million of that being at Kingwood. And there you can see we already have encumbrances booked for another $1 million. So we are still definitely probably north of the $30 million estimate for total costs of Hurricane Harvey, but I'm going to continue to include this report in here so you can see, right, even though those are estimated costs, it does take some time for first the work to get done, which, by the way, the remediation at Kingwood is complete, but then the invoices have to actually come in and get paid to hit the expense statement here. So I'm going to continue to include this in the monthly report. We don't have any updates
on FEMA or?
FEMA, we have until I think it's sometime later this month to get in our report of all of our high-level damages. And I mean, we're going to be working with them for at least a year or more to work on getting the recoveries.
Just so the board knows, on the finance, we're not getting any information out of the state about what they're going to do. I'm not expecting anything until 19. That's what they're talking about doing, is making a special appropriation in 19. But entire towns along the coast were hit. There's major damage, and if you look at all the other damage around, so we're just a piece of that pie, even though we're a significant piece of it, because we had more damage than, as far as I can tell, all the other colleges put together. But I don't see. They're not talking about making a special appropriations or anything like that to colleges that were damaged. Not anytime soon, not before 2019.
Right, so at this point, like I said, we've gotten the insurance proceeds for the water damage, and we're just going to continue to work on FEMA. I mean, there I am still hoping for somewhere between the 60 to 70% reimbursement rate from FEMA. It's definitely just going to take time to get that through.
We'll spend more time at the retreat talking about this, but the big issue for us is going to be the impact on assessed value. That's a big one. And we're taking a look at our enrollments in the spring, and our enrollments were down about 10% as of this morning. I think 9 or 10%. All right. So each percentage point for tuition purposes is 1.456 million, something like that. give or take?
I'm not gonna do that one off the
Something
top
like
of
that.
my head.
So we're monitoring that very closely. Most of the issues we have will not have issues this year, will be downstream for us, so we're paying close attention to that. We're gonna be fine because we're keeping tabs on everything, but it's, if things continue the way they've been, it will impact us, especially into next year's budget, but we can handle that, so.
But on the enrollment numbers, that we're down 10% as of today.
Yeah, I think it was 9% or 10%, I don't remember 6%? 7% contact hours? Okay. That's still $10 million, that's $10 million we're down on, so.
So that concludes my financial report. There's just a couple things in the construction projects update. I did want to highlight the Process Technology Center. Just last week, we did get the certificate of occupancy, and I know that's a key for Kingwood. They're going to be operating a lot of their classes out of that facility spring semester. So not only is it a new facility in general, but it's also going to be housing some more of their classes for spring. So we did get that certificate of occupancy. And also the Science and Innovation Building for UP, right? We had hoped to have that substantially complete in October, but right then that got flooded as well. So we are pushing real hard to have that open for January. We are expecting it to be open January for spring classes. So that is another area that we're focusing on for that building. And like I just mentioned, the remediation at Kingwood is complete, the remediation. And that concludes the construction.
I have a question. On storm-related construction or storm-related work, I think last month we gave the chancellor the authority, to authorize that work without going through an RFP process. Am I correct?
So there's only a couple of small things that we are doing outside of the normal procurement process. One is doing which was in your agenda tonight, was approving the build out of the dental hygiene lease space so that could be ready for classes in the spring. If we followed the full RFP process, it would not have been ready until the summer.
They approved a number of items last time.
Yeah, last time and tonight as
right.
well. Yeah.
I don't see too many more of those coming. We've taken care of the immediate needs, right?
I hope so, since the next one we're here is February.
My question was, have the contractors been selected based on the ones that we've approved, or is that still in progress? Work in progress.
On which piece for the contract?
Well, I had a contractor call and said that we were going to not rebid, but assign, some of the reconstruction work.
The major construction work, the major work, we are definitely going to go through the full procurement process. We really need to if we want to get reimbursed by FEMA. So we have limited it to very, very limited situations where we are not doing that.
That's one of the reasons.
I remember you saying that.
Kingwood, it's just going to take a while for Kingwood. I'm not telling you anything that the president doesn't know, but the architects have to do their work. We have to go out for bids. We have to go through the entire process before remodeling, and then the construction period on that. So we're going to be pushing hard.
I think we're hoping to have the construction contract here in either March or April. And then after that is when the construction.
But you all see, if they don't do that work in 6 or 7 months, then they're not going to fully open in January of 19. It'll be sometime in the summer, and Dr. Pearson acknowledged today that this is out of her control. That's the first time I've ever heard her say anything was out of her control, but so we're making some progress there, but we're trying to do what we can do, but we can't get reimbursed from FEMA if we don't, we have to follow the guide. I mean, I think we ought to be doing it anyway, so we don't have a thing like you saw in Puerto Rico where somebody gets assigned. We need to keep this really above board, and you all do the approvals for that.
As the attorney at Lone Star Legal Aid that's in charge of overseeing disaster response, I've done thousands of FEMA cases. My heart goes out to you, okay? Expect delay after delay after delay. Expect to be asked to submit 20 times what you've already submitted 19 times.
Yes.
And you just have to calendar your deadlines and be very persistent. I'm so sorry.
I did see parts of the process previously at the City of Houston as well, so yes.
Yes.
I had a note
I'm
from the
sure you
coordinating
did.
board.
Yes.
I had a note from the coordinating board last night. Good thing I was on the airplane looking at it. They asked for the same information we've already submitted like 3 times.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll make a copy of what we did and send it to you.
Certified mail return receipt requested.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. And
Thank you.
before we adjourn, board members, do we have any future agenda items? Chairman Good, could you do me a favor?
Did I?
No, you didn't. I'm sorry.
Okay, yes.
When you were chairman, you recommended an endowment through the foundation.
I did.
Yes, and could we talk about that at the next board meeting?
Sure.
To make sure everyone is familiar with what that endowment included, and to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yes, absolutely.
As we go forward.
Be happy to.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other agenda items?
No, let me just say, if any of you have stories about the kids going through adversity, send them to me.
You said that
Send them
before.
to either Lee or me. It's
Yeah.
ronaldtrowbridge@gmail.com.
I know you're 80, you forgot you said that already, so that's.
Gavel.
We're adjourned. Meeting's over.
I just want to let everybody know we had a report that it's snowing in Cyprus.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.